All right, we're gonna record. All right. So essentially we have about 6 online. I think I'm starting this. Hi, everyone. Good to have you here. I'm just trying to get all the stuff, and I should put this on so you can see everybody. Got a few people online too. So, hello, everyone online.
Oh,
A little delay. So, I'm Chris Mankey. I think I've met most everyone. I don't know if I've met everybody, but most everybody. So, good to have you with us. We're glad you're interested in going and seeing the world, which is always a great thing. And this is one of those parts of the world which is pretty amazing. So, we're excited to do this trip. I know St. John's has been working on a Paul study by Paul, right? Paul leading a Paul study.
No, I had small group meetings, I preached on twice.
I'm just having fun.
Well, don't.
That won't be the last time I do that on this trip. So it should be good. So we just wanted to just take a moment just to go around, say your names, say maybe a little something that you might be excited about this trip. If you're still contemplating the trip, you know, if you want to say anything like that too. So it's just a chance for us just to say who's in the room and greet each other. So like I said, I started off. I don't know, Dave, just launch these things for us.
Yeah, Dave Crow, I took the trip to Israel and had some great time. We were talking, partner and I, Cheryl, were talking about what we need to go to have some reset Italy somehow. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later,
yeah.
here we go.
There you go. All right.
It's Carol, and as Dave said, I was on the trip to Israel. And look forward to traveling with some of the same people and just continuing the journey following in Paul's footsteps. I'm Karen Bouldering, Paul's wife, and I was supposed to go on the Israel trip, but my daughter has cancer, so I stayed home. And I'm looking forward to going on this trip.
And I'm Paul, and I love the Bible, and I love ancient history and archaeology and architecture, and we did this trip 5 years ago.
I can't either. I think we need having the people talk.
All right.
It's not.
Can everybody hear it online? Hard to hear it on. We'll have to speak up. Yeah.
Okay, well, I said, I'm looking forward to this trip. The last time I was on Vancouver, I shared a room with 16 other guys who pretty high.
That's exactly what the cruise is gonna be like.
So I'm looking forward to this because I haven't been to the most of these places.
And I'm Gail, and I'm going on this trip because I wanted you to go on the trip, so I figured if I went on the trip, you might go, and it all worked. It worked out. I've been on this trip before, and Paul Baldwin and Karen were there, so it's fantastic, and I don't mind doing it all over again.
Name Jane, I go to St. Mark's. I've been to Israel, but I don't know how many years ago, probably like 10. Could be ish. I love to travel. Any place and anywhere, and my husband hates to travel, but doesn't deny me the.
This meeting is being recorded.
But I like to travel with it. I am very much looking forward to this trip. We have a Bible boot camp that we just started. Reading the Bible cover to cover in 90 days.
Oh, wow.
And so I can't wait to get into more into fall. And stuff, it's quite an endeavor. I spend a lot of time in my car, so it's very easy to listen in my car. But yeah, I'm very excited about this, because I like history and digging in the dirt and looking for stuff, yeah, so.
Mary Ann Sidmar, and I'm also from St. Mark's. I was in Israel probably 20 years ago, with some friends from my former church in Waukesha, the Shepherd, which is now closed. And so when this came up, I thought, wow, this really sounds interesting, and, so here I am.
Awesome.
My husband also did not like to travel, but he never said, don't go, so I've done.
That's great.
I'm Deb Turner. Kim and Darlene Bars, back door neighbor to some of your. And, I have been to Israel and it's so enjoyed it and found that it's so enriched, Bible study and enriched my faith. That I knew that this would do the same. So, I'm very, very eager. For this.
Those of you online, the Heralds, you want to go? And I think I have you muted, so let's unmute you. You might need, yep, there you go. Well, almost. There we go.
Now,
Go ahead.
hear me?
Yep,
Can you hear? now?
yes.
I can hear you, Pastor Chris, well. The other participants, they sound very much in the distance.
Okay. Sorry about that. You want to say anything about what you're excited about?
Well, see another, or participate in another dimension of the Bible.
All right, it definitely is that. So we're glad you guys can join us. Janet up in the other corner. You want to say anything? I think you're on mute as well. I don't know if you can unmute yourself. Or Linda or Janet. I think Janet's on 2 lines there, maybe. Otherwise, we'll come back to you after you unmute yourself. We have 2 more people come in. You want to say just your names?
Aaron Davis.
All right. Anything about what you're excited about?
The whole thing.
All right.
Going through the call with the book of Paul,
Yeah.
it's like, this is like,
Yeah.
could have been more perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad you're coming along. And I'm Chris Mankey. I didn't introduce coming in. So I'm one of the leaders with Gail and Paul, and so we're excited to do this trip. I did this trip in 2018, and it was wonderful. I can't wait to go back. So it should be great. So I think we're going to hand it over to Pastor Paul, and he's got a presentation for us. You should have all gotten the agenda. I sent it to a bunch of you at home as well, in case you want that.
Clicker, or are you my clicker?
I am your clicker.
Okay, because you're gonna click real fast.
Okay, let me put it up there. It won't matter because they're gonna be watching the, yes, right. But I gotta get it started there. There we go.
All right, well, welcome to the footsteps of the Apostle Paul. I'm gonna point to him every time. I've got 120 slides before. So. Okay, excellent. And again, we're going to be following the book of the Acts of the Apostles, the story that tells about Paul and Peter and other Christian missionaries. Okay, and our 2 guys are Paul and Peter, who will be the ones we're focusing on, especially on Paul. All right, and we're going to be following. Paul took at least 3 missionary journeys, according to the book of Acts, and his letters indicate he maybe took a couple more. We're going to be following his second and his third missionary journeys, which were basically to Western Asia. This was the Roman province of Asia, modern day Turkey, and into Greece and then to Rome. Okay, excellent. And we are going to be following the letters of Paul, which, if you've been reading the book at St. John's, right? At St. John, a wonderful book. And the letters that Paul wrote, we don't know exactly where he wrote them from, but we believe that these were the main cities where he wrote his letters. Again,
it's a guess. A lot of this is guesswork. But we're going to be in a number of the main cities where Paul lived sometimes for quite a while and where he wrote his letters. And we have a little background. The world in which we're looking is in the early mid-1st century AD. It was at a time when the Roman Empire was growing to be at its zenith. About 60 years ago, the biggest it would ever be. Everything is about Rome. Paul was a Roman citizen. Everything, everywhere Paul traveled was part of Rome. And Rome was the superpower of the Western world at that time. Rome controlled everything. The next slide, Rome did it with an army. Rome had a huge army, a well-financed and a well-trained army, and Rome used its army very well. And we'll see a lot of those remnants of Roman military while we're on the trip, okay? And in the midst of the Roman Empire comes this crazy little group of people who weren't even called Christians at the very beginning, who claim that there is this itinerant preacher in Judea who was the Son of God, and who was crucified and who was raised from the dead, and that everyone who believed in him, as John 3:16, wouldn't perish, but would have eternal life. And their work, their work, the work of this guy, Paul, I think that's the oldest picture we have of Paul. Centuries after he lives, that's probably not what he looks like. But he started out as an enemy of the church, a persecutor of Christians, who became a Christian and spent the remainder of his life, about 30 years, traveling all around the Mediterranean world, preaching, teaching, founding churches, and helping this fledgling group called the Christians to learn what it meant to follow Jesus Christ. And he did a lot of this by letters. And we live in an electronic age where Gail, Chris, and I were. One of you sent a text at 6:40 in the morning this morning, which was just crazy. But in Paul's day, everything was done by letters written on papyrus, which were hand delivered. And we have to remember the ancient world traveled at 3 miles an hour. Okay, now we're talking our flight from Chicago to Athens will be what, 8 hours? Oh, that long. Think of in the ancient world of traveling at 3 miles an hour, unless, next one, you happen to be on a ship, which you could travel faster if the winds were favorable, because the ancient mariners didn't know how to tack into the wind. So if the wind was against you, you didn't go anywhere. And during part of the season, the winter, you didn't travel anywhere. That's the world in which Paul lived. Okay, next one. And I'm just going to take you to the places we are going to visit very, very quickly. Just a couple slides on each one. Chris takes about 7,000 photos a day on the trip, so you'll get to see a lot more. We're going to start in Athens. And Paul was in Athens, and the story is in Acts chapter 17. He made a very short visit. Athens, the capital of ancient Greece. This is the Acropolis, one of the most famous sites in the world. That is the Parthenon. Acropolis is a Greek word, it just means high city. And the Parthenon actually means virgin, because the Parthenon was dedicated to the goddess Athena, the great virgin goddess. And so this will be one of the great sites we will see. Next one. And most of us grew up thinking the ancient world was just marble, but the ancients painted everything. All their statues were painted. All their buildings were painted. And this is a little glimpse of what we think the Acropolis probably looked like in the 5th century BC. And the Parthenon actually, it remained in pristine condition. Next slide. Looking something like this again, painted on the outside, everything painted, gilded, beautiful. And in the 16th century, next one, the Turks and the Venetians were fighting a war. And the Turks held Athens, and they used the Parthenon as a gunpowder storage depot. And the Venetian shell landed in the Parthenon and blew it up. And that's why it looks the way today. It's not due to the Romans or some ancient Vandals. It has to do with 17th century Venetians blowing it up. And there's work going on all the time. You'll see scaffolding probably there. Just to below the Parthenon is this place called the Areopagus, which in Greek, translated in English, means Mars Hill. And this is a very famous place in the book of the Acts of the Apostles. Because Paul, this is where the Greek philosophers would gather to argue and discuss. The author of the book of Acts said they love nothing more than discussing things endlessly. And Paul gets into a discussion, a theological discussion with the Greek philosophers and scholars on Mars Hill as he comes to tell them about Jesus. And Paul was very good about introducing things. And he said on the way into town, next one, I came across an altar dedicated to an unknown God. The Greeks had so many gods that they actually had an altar to an unknown God in case they missed one. And this is actually an altar to an unknown god that was found in Athens. Whether it's the one Paul saw or not, we don't know. So Paul uses, next one please, he uses the unknown God as an entryway to try and talk about Jesus. When you are up on the Acropolis, you will see a couple other magnificent buildings, and you may have time to go there. This is the Temple to Hephaestus, who was the great workman, Vulcan, Rome called him Vulcan. He was the great workman god. And this is one of the best preserved ancient temples. And that thing, that's over 2,000 years old, and it's still in amazing shape. Next one. This is the remnants of the Temple of Jupiter, which was huge. All that stands today are those few pillars. The next one. And in Athens, they have this beautiful new museum where they house all the archaeological finds they have found. In fact, this is from our 2018 trip. There was a concert, but the concert is on a plexiglass floor, because you can look down as you walk into the museum. You look down about 30 feet and you see what 5th, 6th century BC Athens looked like. It's that far underground, because cities just keep getting built up one after another, next one. And in the museum, you like museums, it's a great museum. There was actually another Parthenon before the one we see. It was destroyed by the Persians in the 5th century BC. And archaeologists have found a lot of the decorations from the very first Parthenon. So if you like museums, you're gonna really like this trip. And if you don't like museums, you get to do a lot of other things. This is outside of the tomb of the unknown soldier in Athens. That's my wife Karen and our daughter Samantha feeding the pigeons, which they love to do. Next one. This is the Olympic Stadium from the 1896 Olympics, the very first modern Olympics. This is the stadium where some of those games took place. You'll probably get to see that. Next one. You'll see cats. Okay, we have 3 cats. We love cats. One of the things you'll see in European cities is you'll see wild cats just wandering around. When we were in Istanbul last fall, wild dogs, feral dogs, just wandering all over. So you will see cats everywhere. So if you are a cat lover, you will love being in Europe. Next one. And if you're a duck lover, a woman carrying a duck down the main street in Athens. Don't know why, but we thought that was a great picture. You'll see all kinds of things. Next one. We're going to go to Corinth. And Corinth is one of the great ancient cities of the world. Greek Corinth was destroyed by the Romans about 150 BC, and then the Romans built the new city, which is the city we hear about in the book of the Acts of the Apostles. Corinth is a couple hours west of Athens, and you'll see this isthmus here that separates the 2 parts of Greece, a very important area to control. And the next one. And it's very narrow, and as far back as the time of Nero, the ancients tried to build a channel through the isthmus of Corinth. This was actually completed in the late 19th century, and it's deep and it's narrow. There's a bridge you can stand and look over and be amazed. Ancient Corinth was a large city. It was a maritime city because it stood astride the isthmus, and ancient sailors, we think, would land on the southern end, and then they'd either pull the boats overland, or they'd unload the boats and carry everything overland to the other side and then load them on new boats. So this was a maritime city. It was kind of the Wild West, because sailors come into town all the time. And this is where the Apostle Paul spent a year and a half. One of his longest ministries was in Corinth, and he stayed with a man and his wife named Priscilla and Aquila, and they were Jews who had been expelled from Rome, the book of Acts tells us, by the Emperor Claudius. And so Paul lived with them. Paul by trade was a tent maker, and so he lived for a year and a half with Priscilla and Aquila in Corinth, making tents during the day, and then when he had free time, he would go and preach about Jesus Christ. And obviously, the letters, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, he wrote to this church. Next. In Corinth, you will see the ancient ruins. This is the 7th or 8th century BC temple to the god Poseidon, the god of the sea. And way up there, that is the Acropolis of Corinth. And up there were temples and temples and temples and temples. I don't think we go up there because I have to walk. Which is one thing about the trip. If you're not really into walking or you get tired, if you want to just sit down or find a place to rest while other people go off, you're welcome to do that, okay? If you're in Athens and you don't want to climb up to the Acropolis, there are restaurants and bars all over the place down below. Have a drink, get something to eat, enjoy yourself. The rest of us will come back. I just want you to know that, okay? You are not required to do everything that the group does. It's your trip to do a lot of, or not do a lot of what you want. So in Corinth,
Oh, sorry.
Hmm?
You want to go ahead?
this one, yes.
Okay.
This is really interesting. This is in Corinth. This little stone carving was discovered in 1929, and the name on it is Erastus. Erastus was the treasurer of the city of Corinth. He was also a Christian because the Apostle Paul mentions him in Romans 16, verse 23. He says, Erastus then, the treasurer of the city, since Sweden. So then this is a replica, the original is in the museum. But that's one of those hands-on things that directly correlates. Got a question? Can't tell. I'm gonna keep going. All right, excellent. We're going to take a cruise. The Aegean Sea is what Homer, the great poet, called the wine dark sea. And so we are going to spend a couple of days traveling. the Aegean Sea.
Everybody at home, can you mute yourself? Keep going.
Okay, you may next week. And you'll get, if you like to cruise, some of you probably been on cruises, okay? It's a short cruise, which is nice, if you're not a big cruise person, but it's beautiful and excellent. And we are going to be traveling with the Celestial Cruise Line. This is actually our ship from our 2018. So this is the kind of ship you'll be on. Okay, just so you know, that's the ship we'll have. Excellent. We're going to see a bunch of different sites, different islands. Some have to do with the Bible, some have nothing to do with the Bible. Mykonos, nothing to do with the Bible. Get out, shop, wander, have a meal. Okay, excellent. And it is about as scenic can be. This is called the Venice of the Aegean. That's all the rich people. They live right there on the water. Excellent. And again, this is from a restaurant where we ate, and that was our view from the restaurant. So Mykonos, just a nice, relaxing time on the trip. All right. We're going to go to Ephesus, and if you like ancient history, this is the place to be, next to Rome, about the neatest place in the world. Ephesus, next one, was one of the four largest cities in the Roman Empire. We estimate its population in Paul's time was between 250 and 400,000 people. It was huge. In ancient times, it was actually a harbor. When you get there, you will see the sea is a couple miles away because the harbor has silted up through the years. Paul spent over 2 years, or about 2 years in Ephesus. Next one. Ephesus was the site of the Temple of Artemis, which is one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Located on top of the city, this I believe it was 470 feet long. That's a football field and a half. Okay, one of the great ancient sites of the ancient world, and they worship the goddess Artemis. The Greek equivalent to the Roman god Diana. She was the goddess of the hunt, the goddess of crops and fertilities, and Artemis is always depicted like this in statues. We're not sure what this is. It could be multiple breasts. It could be pomegranates. Some have speculated those are ox testicles because she was a goddess of fertility. But the goddess Artemis was the heart of the city. Next one. And if you've ever gone shopping for souvenirs in modern world, that's what they did in the ancient world. Artemis was so popular in Ephesus, the stories in the Book of Acts, that there were silversmiths who would make little tiny statues of Artemis, and they would sell them to all the tourists who come to visit the temple. And when Paul came to town, so many people were converted to Christianity, it was bad for business. Next one. And so a riot actually started. Paul and his followers were arrested, thrown in prison. The silversmiths ran around saying, "Great is the Artemis of the Ephesians." In fact, so important was Artemis. I'm a coin collector, and I know you can't see this, but you're welcome to look. This is a coin from Ephesus. This coin was circulated when Paul was actually there. And on the back is the goddess Artemis. That's how huge, and so Paul caused an uproar by making inroads with Christianity. He was taken to the big theater in Corinth, where there he gave a public defense. This theater still stands. It seats 35,000 people. American Family Field's 43,000, okay. 35,000 people. They still have the theater there today. Next. The Temple of Celsus. It's not from Paul's time. This was built during the reign of Hadrian, about 70 years after Paul. But one of the most beautiful ancient buildings still stand. Just going to show you some signs from Ephesus. Public toilets. The ancient world was very sophisticated. Ephesus had running water. It had sewers. And the toilets weren't just for doing your business. People would sit there and they chat. They do business. They literally do business while doing their business. And so a public toilet from Ephesus. Next one. Ruins everywhere. This was once a huge lintel, and in Greek, that is the Emperor Traiano Caesar, the Emperor Trajan from the early 2nd century. This is something like that. For the next one, this is from 1,000 years later. Crosses by Crusaders engraved at Ephesus. When you see Ephesus, you're seeing a city that was founded about 600 BC and was occupied until about the 14th century AD, 2,000 years. Then it was abandoned and it disappeared until it was rediscovered by archaeology. And when you walk through Ephesus, you're going to walk down the main street. And what's nice about Ephesus is the tour is downhill. Okay, yes. And you're going to walk down and you're going to see all these amazing. Next one. And when you, this is where our cruise ship landed in the city of Kudashi. Love the buildings. They're painted rainbow colors. Turkey is a beautiful country. You see a lot of these things for the short time we got there as well. Then we're going to do more sailing on the Aegean Sea, and you'll just sit the stand and watch all the good little islands that come around. Next one. We're going to take a brief stop at the island of Patmos, which is best known, next one, because that's where John, who wrote the book of Revelation, was exiled. And tradition says he wrote the book of Revelation while on the island of Patmos. And next one. And on Patmos is a Crusader era fort, which also has, next one, every fort, every place has a chapel or a church. And this is the traditional site where John composed the book of Revelation. Probably not, because this wasn't really here yet for another 900 years, but somewhere around there is where John would have written the book of the Revelation. All right. One of the nice things you'll see, the weather in this part of the world is gorgeous, and it's really good. Solid, not like Wisconsin, where it's changing all the time. Nice, consistent weather. You'll see sunsets, next one, and you'll see sunsets. You'll see a lot of really pretty sunsets on the trip. All right. We will take a stop on the island of Crete, south of Italy. And we'll have time there. If you want to just hang out in the main city and shop, you can do so. A number of times during the trip, you will have an option if you want to take an elective tour. Costs some money to do, but if you want to do it, you're welcome to do it. And the tour you can take, next one, is there's Crete down there. If you'd like to, on the island of Crete, is you can go to the city of Knossos. Knossos was the capital of the Minoan Empire, which is one of the great ancient seafaring civilizations of the world. It was destroyed in the 16th century BC. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But before that, the city of Knossos was just magnificent, and it was excavated about 120 years ago by a scholar named Sir Arthur Evans. And he has rebuilt, this was not standing there, he's rebuilt parts of it, but it is just an enormous complex. Next one. This was the throne room where the king, the Cretan king, sat. That is his throne right there next to it. And this is what it looked like when they dug it up in the 1890s. Sitting right where it still is today. Knossos was destroyed by a volcano, by an earthquake and a volcanic eruption. And so it was just buried and forgotten. But it is the largest palatial ruins from the ancient world anywhere in the world. And so if you'd like, you can take a side trip and go to Knossos. Yeah, you don't have to, but if you'd like to, if you're done sightseeing ancient stuff and you want to shop, you just have a leisurely meal, you can do that as well. You want to stay on the ship and just relax on the ship, you're welcome to do that too. I just want you to know that. We're going to go to Santorini, which is perhaps the most scenic place Karen and I have ever been. This is the island of Santorini. This is all volcanic. Okay, next one. Because in the year about 1570 BC, this was an island, a big huge island called Thera. In 1576 BC, this island blew up. Seismologists believe it was the largest eruption in the history of the world. The island blew up, and it left this, all right? It is this eruption that destroyed the Minoan civilization over 100 miles away. This eruption was felt in Egypt. It was felt all around the ancient world. And so this is what is left. This is the modern island of Santorini, which, next one, is really beautiful. With this, I think one of my favorite pictures, this was a 13-year-old girl named Shannon on our last trip, on the bow of the ship, coming into Santorini with her hair just flying all over. So if you want to have a wild hair moment, that's where you want to go. I just like that picture. This is my wife's favorite part of the trip. Karen loves sea bass, and on Santorini, we sat overlooking the harbor with the cruise ships, and she had this wonderful meal, and she still talks about it 5 years ago. All right, next one.
He enjoyed it too, I think.
I did too. This is the harbor, one of the harbors down in Santorini. Okay, if you want to just walk down there, you can just walk around the town there, or they have alternate trips. We can take a bus around to the other side of the island. I think that's what you're planning on doing, Chris.
Yes.
The rich and famous come to Santorini. Okay, this is the hot knob spot of rich and famous. This is Aristotle Onassis' yacht, now owned by his grandson. Okay, here's the really good one. Next one. We came down to the harbor, and we're sitting down at the harbor at night, and this little dinghy came in, and in this dinghy was this character with the shirt unbuttoned down here, standing like this, hair blowing in the breeze. And it was Matthew McConaughey and his party. And so, forget the Apostle Paul, forget we saw Matthew McConaughey. So when you're on Santorini, keep an eye out for who you might see, all right? And then when our cruise is done, we go back to Athens and we find the occurrence.
Can I just say one thing about
Absolutely.
Santorini is that place where every travel agency uses their pictures of the white roofs and the blue and white roofs. That's the island.
And it's wonderful. And you can shop, you can relax, you can tour, you can do whatever you want. Just beautiful. So we're going to go to Rome and see all kinds of stuff in Rome. All right, next one. If 3 coins in a fountain, 1954, okay, the Trevi Fountain. This is the scene from the movie. Next one, this is what it looks like today. Okay, a little bit more crowded today. We'll be there at the height of tour season. And with COVID over, tourism is coming back. So be prepared to have lots and lots of other tourists around. But you will get to see the Trevi Fountain. You just can't. And you can throw coins in. They still let you throw coins in. You can't go waging. Next one. We're going to go to the Roman Forum, which was the center of the capital, like in Washington, D.C., where you have the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, the Jefferson. That's the center of it. And there are 3 massive arches in the Forum at Rome. This was the Arch of Constantine the Great, early 4th century AD, the emperor who legalized Christianity. Okay, beautiful, all right? And it's right next to the Colosseum. So you'll get to go to the Colosseum. And this is what the Colosseum looks like today. It has been damaged it was built in the end of the 1st century AD. And over the years, earthquakes, disasters, and people just stealing the stone to build other stuff. But next one, this is what the Colosseum actually probably looked like when it was built. A magnificent, seats 50,000 people. And not only that, next one, it had an awning. It had a movable awning. So the spectators would be in the shade, like clothes in the roof that American families do, okay? And they would have gladiatorial combats, they would have races, they could actually flood the arena and have naval battles in the arena. Okay? They also executed a lot of Christians and criminals there too, as well. Okay, next one. And again, this is the underground area at the Colosseum. That is where they stored stuff, that's where the gladiators and the crews were, that's where they keep all the wild animals. All these huge archways, built out of concrete, the Romans were great at building concrete. So you'll get to go in there, they spent, the government of Italy has spent millions and billions and billions of dollars renovating and fixing up the Colosseum, so beautiful place to see. Then we're going to go into the Forum, which was again, the heart of the capital of Rome. And you'll see some magnificent, some ruins and some full buildings next. This is what we think the Forum probably looked like in the 2nd or 3rd century AD, with all, these are temples, these are government buildings, mostly temples, shrines to famous leaders. Julius Caesar's grave was here, all these beautiful, beautiful things. Next one. This is a painting from early 1800s. This is the Arch of Titus. Titus was the son of a general whose name was Vespasian, and there's a war that the Jews fought the Romans between 66 and 70 AD. In 769, Vespasian became emperor, so he left his son Titus to finish up the war. And he completed the war, he destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD. And when he came back to Rome, and he became emperor just a couple of years later, he built this arch. And this arch is really important, next one, because it commemorates his victory over the Jews. In fact, some scholars think the Colosseum was actually built with all the loot and gold taken from the temple in Jerusalem. And here's part of it. Again, the Romans painted everything. So originally it would have looked like this. And what it is, it commemorates, what's this?
Menorah.
The menorah. It's commemorating all the treasures the Romans took from the temple in Jerusalem. And so that's how important that battle was. They built this huge triumphal arch to commemorate. Next one. This is now a church. You can see the cross on top, but originally this was a temple to it says Divo Antoniono Diva Faustina, dedicated to the Emperor Antoninus Pius and his wife Faustina in the 2nd century. It still stands, 1800-year-old temple, which now is the Christian church. All right. And you'll get to join the thousands of other people wandering around. If in our group, everyone gets a pretty little red baseball cap to wear. And
Get a second one if you have one, so.
the reason we wear them is we can tell who our group is. Because as you see, we will not be alone where we go. So just be aware of that. Okay. And this is the 3rd arch. This is the arch of the Emperor Septimius Severus at the other end of the Forum. This was built in the 3rd century. All right, almost to the end. We're also going to go to the Mamertine prison. This ancient site is where tradition says the Apostle Paul was arrested, came to Rome at the end of the book of Acts, and he was held under house arrest, we think, but tradition also says he ended up in this prison. And next one. And it's now a church commemorating. Next one. And there's a hole in the ceiling, and the prisoners would have been down here. There's the hole right here. And the prisoners would have been lowered down into the dungeon below. So this is a very famous site as well. Right. We'll go to the Vatican. Right. Which we've all seen pictures of the Vatican. All right, next one. It is huge. The Vatican is huge. The St. Peter's Basilica seats 35,000 people. It's kind of big. And so here it is in the heart of Rome. That's the Tiber River. That's the tomb of the Emperor Hadrian, I believe. So next one. But St. Peter's today is not the first St. Peter's. The Emperor Constantine built the original St. Peter's in the 4th century AD, made of wood. And in Martin Luther's time, it was falling apart. And so the Pope had a new St. Peter's built. And to do that, he needed money. And that's where the whole selling of indulgences in Luther's Germany comes from, because it was raising money to build the new St. Peter's. When you are at St. Peter's in the Vatican, you will see the Swiss guards, Pope's personal guards. Next one. You will see Michelangelo's Pietà, which is in the Sistine Chapel. Next one. Chapel. You will see the bodies of various dead popes, who are all over the place. You can see all the dead popes, and you'll get to see the high altar in the center of St. Peter's. Tradition says that St. Peter is buried underneath that high altar. And back in the 1930s, archaeologists actually had permission to go down and dig underneath, and they found the body of a man the bones of a man who would have been in his 60s, wrapped in purple. And that's speculation that perhaps was actually the body of Peter. Okay. You'll get to go to the Sistine Chapel, painted by Michelangelo. You can't take pictures.
You can't do that, openly.
Well, good pastors who love the Lord Jesus Christ.
Get a really good picture.
But you'll have an opportunity to.
I'll show you my video.
Okay. And we had a wonderful experience while, we had a little, you saw, Shannon, the 13-year-old, her brother Cameron was 8 at the time, came on, and while everyone else is looking up like this at the 15 chapel ceiling, Cameron decided he had to go to the bathroom, so he just took off. And Mom looks down and, okay, we found him, fortunately, but it was one of those, so buddy system at all times, okay, all right.
Especially there. That's,
Especially there, yeah.
geez.
If
That's
you
crazy.
want to know where something is, you go on Google Maps in ancient times in the Vatican. If you wanted to know where something is, they have the hallway of the maps. Next one. This hallway is just lined with maps. And so if the Pope and his advisors needed to figure out what's what, they would just go and check out the maps, all in this huge hallway. It's beautiful. So you'll have a free day in Rome. If you want to go back to the Vatican and wander more, you're welcome to do that. We'll go and see some of the catacombs where ancient Romans and ancient Christians were buried. And we'll see some of these beautiful places. That's a painting over an ancient grave underground. All right. Other sites in Rome you will see. This is the tomb of Victor Emmanuel, who was the 19th century king who founded modern day. Huge, huge place. Okay, next one. This is part of the wall that used to surround Rome, built by the Emperor Aurelian in the 3rd century AD. You'll still see these 1700-year-old wall that's still standing there. It's amazing. Okay. You'll see that the pillar, the column of Emperor Trajan commemorating his victory over the Dacian Empire in the 2nd century AD. And again, I collect coins. I actually have a Roman coin of Trajan, and on the back is that very column. Because that was so important, they wanted to even put it on a coin. All right. And you'll have time to eat. You'll have lots of time to eat. You'll have lots of time to whet your appetite.
Gail was enjoying something there.
Yes, this is a really nice pizza place. I had pizza here. That was really, really nice. Okay, next. And you'll see beautiful, beautiful countries. All right. And this is the basilica outside of Rome, where traditionally this is where the Apostle Paul was buried. Next one. This is a small church. It only seats 18,000. But Paul is, the tradition says the body of Paul is buried under the vial in this church. We'll get to go and see that as well. Right? Almost done. And you're gonna have a free day in Rome. You can do whatever you want. One of the options will be if you want to go to Pompeii. There's the last couple of slides are on Pompeii, this ancient city on the coast of Naples, just south of the city of Naples, which was a city of about 12,000. And in 79 AD, the mountain behind it, Vesuvius, nobody knew it was a volcano. And we think late August of 79 AD, next one, Vesuvius erupted, and Pompeii and the neighboring town of Herculaneum were destroyed by a pyroclastic flow, which buried the city under 15 to 20 feet of ash, which turned to rock. And the cities were completely forgotten until the 15th century. And when people digging wells suddenly started pulling up statues in gold. And so archaeologists have been digging at Pompeii for over 200 years. And so if you wanted to go to Pompeii, that's one of the options which we may have. That's a Roman street, exactly as it looked in 79 AD. These stones are for crossing the street so you don't get your feet wet. The grooves in the road are from wagon wheels and chariot wheels. That's a Roman town from 1900 years ago. It's just amazing. You'll also see bodies. These were people who died in the eruption of Vesuvius. They were buried in the ash, and when their bodies disintegrated, it left a hollowed out cavity. And archaeologists got smart enough to realize if they poured plaster of Paris into that, you get a body. And so you'll see those all over Pompeii. And you'll see the beautiful houses. The paintings are still there. They've been preserved for 2,000 years because of the ashes. And that's it. So that's just a little bit of what you're going to see in a very quick fashion in 20 minutes, 25 minutes. You'll have 10 days to explore it all in real good detail. So, any questions? I will stop sharing if anyone has questions.
I'm gonna make a confession right now that on my website, I messed up. The dates are actually till the 3rd of August.
Whoops.
So that last day of the free day isn't so much. So the Pompey isn't so much.
Don't forget Pompeii.
So I just want to be clear on that, okay? Because on the registration, what's that?
You do have 3 day notice.
It's, I think it's not as much,
Okay.
not a full day, not a full 3
It
day,
has
so.
some free time.
So I just want to be clear on that right away. On your sheet that you have is the correct schedule.
So you go to Pompeii. Okay.
All right, we'll still get all the other stuff though. Any questions on any of that Pastor Paul had just talked about? I'm gonna go back to online. People online, any questions? We're gonna keep moving. Gail, do you wanna talk about your stuff?
Oh,
Or do you want me to keep going on a few things?
okay, so what we're going to look at is the airline schedule.
And that's on the bottom of the agenda page.
We're flying Scandinavian Air. I've never flown Scandinavian Air.
Gail, can I have you stand right here?
Oh, you want me to stand there?
Then they can see you.
Everybody can hear me.
Yeah, they can hear you better, I think.
Okay, we're flying Scandinavian Air. The flight goes from Chicago to Copenhagen. So you get to go to Denmark. And I'm all excited about that because I've never been in Denmark before. And I'm part Danish, so I'm like, oh, that works. It'll work for all of you as well. Okay, the arrival time in Athens is later in the evening at 8:35 in the evening. So you'll have a very dark entry into Athens. But when you get up in the morning, the first thing you want to do is get ready for breakfast and go up to the top to the deck, the open garden at the top of your hotel room and look at the Acropolis, which you will be able to see from your hotel, where you will go for $50. The best part is seeing that view. You have a 2-hour layover in, no, I'm sorry, you have a 3-hour layover in, Copenhagen before you fly, to Athens. Okay, then you have an internal flight from Athens to Rome. So when you get back from the cruise on Monday morning, you go directly from the port, depending on the timing, and now they have us departing, Athens at 12:05. If that holds, it could change. If that holds, then you probably will have some time to walk around the city center in Athens, just on your own, and then get back on the bus where your luggage is going to be, and then go to the airport. So you may just have a little bit of time to do that. Okay, and then your flight leaving from Rome leaves at 11:05 in the morning, which is a nice comfortable time. You have to be at the airport 3 hours prior, so that means we're going to have to be there at 8:45 or 8 o'clock. Nice time to get up, have breakfast, get on the bus to leave. You have a 2-hour layover again in Copenhagen before you fly to Chicago. And your flight arrives on the same day. You know, your first flight arrives the next day. So you leave on the 24th of July, you arrive on the 25th. Now you will arrive home on the same day at 5:45 p.m., which is perfect. You get home and you go to bed at a normal time, and then you fight jet lag for a couple of days. The trip down to O'Hare, and some of you have done this before, we get a shuttle from St. John's. You could have someone bring you to St. John's, to the parking lot, and, your luggage. You get on the shuttle, we go to O'Hare, and the shuttle is there to meet us when we come back and bring us back to St. John's. It helps if you can have someone drop you off. If you can't, you can park, at the back of the parking lot. There's plenty of parking space, and it's safe. You don't really have to worry so much about that.
What time is the shuttle depart? What time is the shuttle depart?
Well, given that we have to be at O'Hare by 10 p.m., that means we have to be, given that we leave at 10 p.m., that means we have to be at O'Hare Field at 7 p.m., which means we will leave here about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You will have time to eat at O'Hare, and there's plenty of restaurants that we found on our last trip. I just got back from Tanzania, there's plenty of time to eat. Israel, same thing. Plenty of restaurants and plenty of time to eat because we'll be traveling out of the international, you know. So the cost of the shuttle will be approximately $75 round trip, but be prepared for it to be $90 round trip. It just depends on how many people are on the shuttle, and then you share the cost proportionately. So the more people on the shuttle, the less it's going to be, obviously. That's it for the airline. Anyone have any trouble, any questions, you have any trouble? If you are, a person who needs a special seat, if your legs are exceptionally long, or you've had, knee replacement and you need to have your leg extended or something like that, let us know that. Otherwise, you're going to be like everybody else, you're going to be in an ordinary seat on the plane. You don't get to pick your seat. If there's a downside to that, so you didn't have to deal with it.
I think on the registration form, there was a place to put that if you had a special requirement as well.
Get that on the.
On that registration form. Yeah. You could ask for us and Libby handles that. If you didn't do that, you can still tell us and we can tell her. So,
I have a question.
yeah,
The shuttle you're talking about, is that from Milwaukee to O'Hare?
You can omit it, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But I need to know ahead of time if you're going to omit it. So then we'll factor in the cost and the size of the vehicle that we'll need.
so we'll,
Okay.
and we'll park here at St. John's if that's still agreeable to them. And from here, St. John's and Brookfield, right? And then and then come back for our cars afterwards.
Did she say there was a charge for that to get to the airport?
You will have to pay for the shuttle separately, yes.
Between 75 to 100 per person, that's round trip.
I actually said 75 to 90, but it just depends on how many people are on the shuttle. We share the cost proportionately. Make sense?
Yes. Good, thank you. Any other questions on any of that? You want to mention anything about the evenings? Often you want to say something about that?
We like to take time, usually in the evening, after you get back to the hotel or the ship and have a little quiet time. A number of times, well, almost every night, you sit together, people want to relax and have a drink or something. But a number of times during the trip, we'll get together and I'm just gonna lead a session on what we've seen, what we talked about, chance to answer questions, to see how this relates to the Bible. We did it on the Israel trip and I personally thought it was amazing, and I'm sure everyone who went thought it was amazing. Very good. So again, yeah, so if you get a question during the day, save it, and it's just a chance for us to be brief and talk about our faith. We hope to have a couple of worship services while we're on the trip. My goal is when we're in Corinth, to have a service, because the first time, the oldest mention of Holy Communion in existence is Paul's first letter to the Corinthians. Talking about how they celebrated communion in Corinth about 50 AD. So we're probably going to have a communion service there and see if we can have another worship service at another time on our trip as well. So we're going to keep that faith aspect very strong.
That for me was one of the highlights of the trip, was you preaching in Corinth where the Apostle Paul probably stood.
Yeah.
And gave a sermon.
And
was
Little Cameron, the guy who ran up in 60, that was his first communion. We did a private first communion class for him beforehand. So he got to have his first communion in Corinth.
That's cool.
Where communion was first in.
That's cool. Very cool. One thing we mentioned in some of this is it's always good to prep for these trips. And one of the best ways to do that is just to kind of start doing a daily walk. A little bit of a walk every day gets your body ready for some of these walks. Not that it's gonna be super hard, and we've got options if people are like, can't do it, I just need to rest, that's fine. But, you know, all the prep you do ahead of time really does help out. So if you can, if that's encouragement for you to start doing a 2-mile walk, you know, just at your own pace, a leisurely pace around the block. That's a wonderful thing to do. I know every time I've done that, it made my trip better, you know, call it an investment on your money, right? It helps you to have a better trip. So something to think about. We mentioned, on here some of the costs. Gail mentioned that cost for the shuttle. And if some people live closer to Chicago, if you want to just meet us there, that's fine. But we make it easy for you. You park here, you leave your car here. The bus takes us all there. It's real easy. So that the shuttle is a great thing. But that is an extra cost beyond the normal, the company's cost to us. There are a couple other things that you should be aware of. We recommend, but it's not mandatory. We highly recommend getting trip insurance. Whenever you do these trips, it's always amazing to me how things happen. You know, I've had people fall a week before and while they're mowing the lawn and rip up their knees and they can't do this trip. You know, those kind of things, and that's where the insurance really helps out. So that's something to think about. The company on their website has a link to an insurance that they recommend, but you can do any Travel Guard, any insurance. AAA, I think, has it. You can do any that you want that you're connected to. It's just a good recommendation. It's not mandatory, but it's something we recommend, and that's beyond this cost. They always say you never know what the fuel prices are going to be, and they give us they estimate us at a certain level, but sometimes it goes up. So they always say if it goes up a little bit, we're going to have to pass it on to you. I don't think it went up last time for Israel, and I don't actually know it's ever gone up for me, from what we guessed. But it's just one of those warnings that it can happen. We've seen fuel prices go up, haven't we? So that's something to note. One thing that is not included in the cost is a lot of the tips. So one thing we've done in the past, we haven't talked about this as leaders, but one thing we've done in the past is we've said, well, we've gone through the work of kind of saying, well, this is how many days we've been on there. These are the kind of tips we give to the drivers, to the tour guides. You know, we'd estimate those, and if we wanted to, we can just do a group where we'd say probably, I think it's often around
151.
around 150 or so, and then you just say, if you want us to just handle that, then you don't have to do it. You're always welcome to get extra if you thought this person was just the best. And by the way, I was told today that one of our tour guides, the person we have in Athens, the whole time we're in Greece, except for the Greek Isles, is the chairperson of the Tour Guide Association. So kind of like one of the top level people. He was on your
We had him.
Crichton. Yeah, Crichton. I think we had him as well. Excellent person.
Excellent.
Great English, you know, really good English.
Yeah.
Better than mine. So we've got great tour guides that lead these things too. I've put the 2 hotels on there. One of them was listed as this is probably where we'll be, or similar. So we just want to give always that sense of like, it's still in flux as they're putting things together, but both of these hotels are fantastic. The one in Athens is even closer than the one I was on my trip. And we had an incredible hotel where you go up to the rooftop bar, and right outside the rooftop bar is the Acropolis, just right there. This one's even better. It's much closer to the city center, and according to the website, it looks incredible. So the first thing we might want to do when we arrive is just go straight up and get a glass of wine up on the roof and see the Acropolis there at night all lit up. So, and the hotel in Rome is, I was told, and this is one of those or similar. The one he's listed here is about a block and a half away from the Vatican. So it's very close to the Vatican City. So right in the heart of everything. So he rates it as a 4 or 5 star. So a great place. The cruise, I want to mention there's 2 things you can adjust on the cruise if you want to. We got we asked for, rooms that had a porthole. So we're up, not just below, but up. But you can upgrade if you want to. If you want to spend the money, you want to go even higher up and get a little bit bigger rooms and things like that, you can do that. I've got the pricing and we'll have to work that out with the company if you want to do that. So that's something you can do. If you want to pay an extra, per day and go up. You want to say something? Yeah.
One thing that happens, and it's happened twice to me now, is that, you typically take a lower priced room. We're better than a porthole, but not that much better. And then what happens is most groups want the cheapest priced room. Well, they keep moving people in the cheap rooms up to the next level so that these other people will come on the trip. So we got upgraded to another level, and the three couples got upgraded to the suite in front of the captain's lookout, or whatever you call it. And so we were all upgraded, so you can kind of think that maybe you will be upgraded. The other thing to think about is how often are you going to be in this little room on the ship? You don't want to be there, you want to be out on the deck, you're going to be traveling. So it isn't super important unless you feel you need more space.
Those are great points, yeah, so it's really up to you if you wanna do that, speak with me and we can upgrade you, but those are great points. And we already started asking for a little bit better than the lowest level, so. The other thing that goes with that is, I think you might have done this as well, on my trip, we purchased as a group a drink package. They've changed the rules a little bit, there is drinks included with your lunch and dinner. So you get beer, wine, sodas, juices, coffee with your lunch and dinner. You can purchase beyond that an additional drink package. So if you want a certain amount of drinks, while you're at night or whatever, wine, lots of stuff, there's like 7 different packages. If you want the juice package, if you want the all-encompassing package where you can drink as much as you want, you can do that. Of course, that's extra. Okay, but with your lunch, with your dinner, you're going to get these things. Now, they may not be specialty drinks, the daiquiris or margaritas or things like that. It's wine, beer, and they were white, red, rosé beers. I don't know if they didn't specify the beers, but to Gail's point earlier, kind of the same thing holds. To buy this big drink package, and if you're really, a lot of the point is we're not even on the ship. You're going doing these excursions. It's pretty much just at night and a couple times where we're going from one place to the other. So we have it. I'll put it up on the website so you can see it. And if you want to upgrade those, you can. But you can always go and buy at the bar a drink as well. So that's a whole other thing. Okay. So that's one of those additional upgrades you can do.
Yes, another point, some of you mentioned that when you were on the island that you had dinner. You talked about having the sea bath, and know that you will have dinner on the ship. But you've got time when you're on the island, so maybe you got 3 hours, and you're like, oh, let's just go to that restaurant, so we can sit at the edge of the water and have a glass of wine or a drink, and then eat. So you can do that anytime you want, but know that if you don't do that, you will have food back at the ship.
Right. So my funny story that goes along with that, I'm gonna tell this now. When in Athens, we had been in Athens for a couple days. And near the end of that, as we were ready to get on, as we were getting on the cruise, the night before, we said, we haven't had Greek heroes. While we've been in Athens, why haven't we had Greek heroes? And the whole group was like, yeah, we haven't had Greek heroes. We gotta go get some Greek heroes. So we got cabs and we all said, we've got the night free. It's just, usually the tours just, go up until about 5, 6 o'clock and then it's done. Everybody can take a break and, and we have these fantastic times afterwards. A couple hours long. But, so we decided that night we're gonna get cabs. We can go back into the city center and find a really good Euro place, right?
So we did that, I found a cab driver who was gonna lead us there. We had like 4 different cabs. Because we were farther out, our hotel was much farther out. This one's gonna be much closer. And I said to him, you know, we're trying to find a really good Euro place. And he just kind of thought for a while, he goes, I know. I'm like, okay. So he drives us into town, we all meet there, get dropped off, the cabs leave, and we're standing there looking around, and we're like, where's the Euro place? There's no Euro place here. And it took us about 5 minutes until we figured out we were standing next to a really good money exchange place
Oh.
for the Euros, right? Well, it was another 5-minute walk to get to an actual Euro stand, Greek Euro stand. But when we got to Mykonos, there was an incredible Greek Euro stand where they had these huge Euros. So so yes, there's plenty of places to get more food, you know, and wonderful shops. Crete is another place with beautiful restaurants and places where you can sit and drink coffee and watch the people walk by. So lots of great things. Any questions that people might have? Yeah. Deb. Yes, the Whispers, if you don't know what a whisper is, it's essentially the guide has a transmitter. So they're transmitting into a microphone and it's transmitting out to all of us. We've got these little, they're not Walkmans, but you know, little headsets that go around and you use a earphone, earplugs, and you can bring your own, by the way. They give you the real cheap ones that come with the system, but you can bring your own higher end quality ones that just have the headphone jack. So, but that way you hear, you can be 100 feet away from the person, hear clearly what they're saying, which is really nice if you're chasing the cats over here, right? And the Acropolis is over here, so you're parking trucks into the cats, you can still listen in and hear what they're saying really clearly. So yes, we will have those. So, other questions? Yeah.
If there are optional excursions, is that cash or do they take credit?
We did it through the excursions. I believe we paid for ahead of time because the company has to make sure we're reserved. So the big one, the big excursion that's not included is the Kenosis one. That's King Midas, right? Minos, okay. So that was an extra, I think we paid, I want to say it was like $50 to do that one. And then they have a bus that takes you there. That's in Crete. So that would be an extra thing. That would be an extra, yes.
So when do we have to register for those?
For those, we're gonna be, I'll send you out notes on those things as we get closer.
We're first time.
Yeah,
travelers. This is
wonderful.
our First time,
Yeah.
so.
You're with the right group.
Currently, do you take cash? Do you use the credit card for everything?
Pretty much a credit card for most things, yeah. It's kind of fun to sometimes get some of the local currency and have some of that. But we're in big cities, I mean, Rome, you know, you bring your credit cards, we'll talk about that as well, those kind of things.
And it's euros everywhere except Turkey, but we're only there for a few hours.
Yeah, Turkey.
You don't have to exchange different, in Greece and Italy, it's
Yeah, there really wasn't much to buy in Turkey, so I think we got a Turkish coffee. Mud thick.
So I just was concerned about like the chips for people, so.
Well, like you said, that would be one thing it works out much easier if everybody just says, we'll just give you X amount. And we'll hand out then it's just, then it's not, we're trying to walk around every time, like, okay, everybody, can you do that for you? So it makes it much easier.
You give them the money.
Makes it much easier that way. Did that get it all? Well, we're gonna have 2 more meetings, I believe, was the idea. Get wonderful, I mean, this is really helpful. I was learning a lot, so thank you for that. And we'll also be able to keep people up to date with what's going on and what you need to think about right now and those kind of things. So.
You also get a better exchange rate when you use the credit card. You're trying to cash in at every location. Weather.
Yes.
There's a ton of weather yet.
Yeah, and it's gonna be summer, it's gonna be warm. So in terms of what you're wearing, we'll have a better
Is it
sense.
like here or is it
of-
because it's water? I mean, I don't know. It's drier. Yeah.
for us, on our trip 5 years ago, it was sunny and 85 to 90. Every day we had sprinkles on it. It was the perfect weather.
The nice part when you're on the water is now the water is finally warm. When you go in the spring, the water is still cold and you sit out on the deck and can kind of feel that. But now the waters are warm and it'll be warm.
Do we need any dressy type clothes at all? Or just?
Not really, we're not doing anything dressy.
As far as the Vatican, do we need to have?
I think you had to have, did you ever have to have covered, ladies had to have a cover for that? For the bed, the shoulders?
Yeah, sorry.
We'll have some of those answers for you, maybe clothing. Yeah. Funny story for us in the Vatican is, everyone's at the same status as you're walking through the Vatican, so we noticed a group next to us that was like a big group that seemed really important. We realized it was football player Colin Kaepernick with 10 of his entourage. I mean, we knew because they were like, huge guys, we're like, they must be somebody. And then somebody finally recognized them. And we're like, they're going at the same speed we were, all the way through, which was kind of interesting.
There's swimming pool on the cruise ship?
Yeah, multiple. There is, if you want to do that, yes. Yeah.
Chris,
Yes.
is there, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Janet, go ahead.
Oh, is there any reason to bring a swimsuit?
Well, not for me. The question was just, is there a pool on the cruise? And yes, there is. I believe there's gonna be pools. I know at least in one of the hotels, I think I saw a pool. If you're somebody that likes to do that, sure. I'm not somebody that likes to do that, so I won't, but it's a personal choice, so.
Okay, then, thank you.
Yeah,
Will there be spots like on the Mediterranean to like wade? You've been in the Mediterranean?
You can also do that.
Oh, okay. Just curious, it's one of those.
right.
You can also.
Well,
It's Santorini, if you have time.
Okay,
and I'm a photographer, and both those places are famous photography places, so I'm more interested in getting pictures with these as well. Amazing. So, what's that?
Will we see any beaches in Turkey?
Not beaches in Turkey. I mean, we go into the main port, you see the port.
Yeah.
But then we drive inland, and it's about,
About Turkish beaches. Okay,
not really.
my other question is, the fall classes that are going on at St. John's?
Yeah.
Is that open to anyone?
What?
The fall classes. that are
But they're,
going on.
wrapped up.
Are they fun?
But if you want a copy of the book, you can call the church and it's a wonderful book. You have a copy of it.
It was awesome. Oh.
So the book is called The Call. I'll put that up on the website as well. But we might want to put a couple other recommendations that people might want to check out. So good stuff. We're kind of prepping for the trip.
That's an excellent book. Very well written.
Okay. Any other questions from home? I've got this sheet, it's not showing the group here, but everybody's on this one here. Any other questions from home or the group here? So as of payments right now, we should be at the first two payments. I think that's a total of, I think that was a total of 1,700, I think right now. There's another payment at the end of the month that'll come in. These help them to hold because they have to put money up to reserve the cruise line is the big one. And the hotels and things like that and the airlines. And so that's what that's helping the company do. Right now, we're less than 20 people on reserved. So we really are trying to get up to like about 33. So if you know other people that might be interested, please tell them. We can still go, with less, but it's better if we can have a little bit more. We didn't mention also the way we get around is also by coach bus. So it is a nice coach bus that gets us around through Rome. What's that? They did in the Israel one, they did. And it actually wasn't too bad. It worked. I usually say that those never work. But that one actually did work. So yes. And we can talk about
tech stuff too as we get closer, you know, how do you do your phone and all those kind of things, so. Any other questions? Otherwise, we want to show that book?
Okay, I have 3 books here.
Let me just show, I'm gonna show the.
$10, you can have.
Just gonna show the camera here. So that's the book. I'll put this book up online as well, so you. Everyone can see. I just wanted to show them. All right, hearing no other questions, why don't we wrap it up with prayer? You wanna do it?
And again, if you have family, friends, anyone who might be interested, we've been talking here at St. John's, my former church up in Grafton. Got a couple people from Grace, I think, who are interested.
Mhm.
And so please, the more the merrier, it makes it wonderful. So let's close with the word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you. We thank you for the life, the faith, the devotion, the courage of the Apostle Paul, of the Apostle Peter, and all those early Christians who gave everything they had to share the good news of Jesus Christ with the world that didn't have a clue who Jesus was. And because of their work, their effort, we are here today. So as we prepare for this pilgrimage of faith, may we truly come to appreciate what our ancestors in the faith have done for us, what they did for people so long ago who were nothing more than names to us. But who at one time, 2,000 years ago, for the life, the blood, the soul of our Christian church. So bless us as we prepare for this trip and be with us so that we truly may all grow in faith, following in the footsteps of the Apostle Paul. Amen.
One more thing, check your passports and make sure that they are good for 6 months after you return. If they aren't, renew your passport and do it as soon as possible, because passports are getting backed up horrendously. A friend of ours who is supposed to go to a Viking cruise on April 6th, she applied for her passport about 2 months ago. She still doesn't have it. She was told yesterday that she would need to fly to the passport immigration office in Denver, Colorado, if she wanted to get her passport.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
So this is ridiculous situation.
Did everyone hear that at home?
So double check and make sure they're good.
Could you hear that at home, Dan? Okay,
Yes, I could hear it. Have
okay.
a good passport, at least 6 months.
Check your passport's deadline or ending date and make sure you've got 6 months past it for the last day of our trip. So, good. All right, thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming out. If you have questions for us, please reach out. Thanks, everybody.
We also learned, we did ATMs too.